terms of drugs, no way.
You
Hell
still
no.
got your
I got
gallbladder.
close. No, I'm kidding. But
No, it's been wacky weather, really all over the place. Absolute peak, 70s, sunny, light breeze, very nice for March. And then you've got days like today where it's hailing and storming. So I think from now on, all Marches will just be topsy turvy weather. And it'll only get topsier and turvier as the years go on.
This is as good of a March as you can ask for, though, so far.
It really has, because we've lived through some where it's nothing but snow, straight up. So this has been good.
The most dangerous thing you can have is weather expectations for March, or trying to plan an outdoor event in March. That is risky business. Even April, you're not completely absolved because that's usually when we get the most rain.
Yeah.
But March is an especially risky time to plan anything outdoors.
I agree.
So this is like the first like truly shitty day of the month, but we did get a couple severe warnings this morning, if I remember correctly, because I was at the station and they came through here in Eastern Iowa at about like 7:30ish.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It didn't see it was uglier than anything. Like it looked worse than I think it was, and then it came down like piss missiles. When I was driving to work, it was just like a lightning show, like the kind of where there's no thunder. It's just a spree of lightning. You ever seen those where it's just lightning it's lightning too quick. It's like the thunder can't keep up, So it looked like daybreak at a couple instances and stuff like that too. And then we had the Cubs on our AM station. The Cubs played in Tokyo the last 2 days with first pitch at 5 o'clock in the morning. Let me tell you, without getting into too much detail, those broadcast issues were fun to deal with. But anyway, no more international baseball games, for Christ's sake. They want to do the Super Bowl in London. I don't know how the hell that would work to begin with.
The Super Bowl?
Oh, they've been talking about it for years. They want a whole team in London full time.
The Monarchs.
They want they'd have to make an international division, but that's been what they've been talking about for years. They want to do a Super Bowl overseas.
I know the Bears somewhat recently played in London.
This year. Yeah.
But is that like a full on, like there's enough demand for it?
Yeah.
They every year they play multiple games in London. There's games in Munich now. There's games in Mexico.
Brazil.
Okay.
The problem is what they would have to do is they'd have to make it, not to go too long-winded in this, they'd have to make it an international division, because it would be criminally unfair for a London team to have to travel eight or nine games, to the States.
Yeah.
I think it'd be like the NBA. You'd have better luck putting a team in Toronto. You know what I mean? But then too, the problem is then you're screwed in free agency, because nobody's gonna. It's like Green Bay. No player wants to go to Green Bay. You know what I mean? They have to offer money. Like in the NBA, nobody wants to go to Toronto. Doesn't get free agents. Nobody wants to go to Canada. Nobody wants to live up in Canada. But. At any rate, though, we're talking to Nora today, the Best Picture winner this year. Sean Baker's brand new film, well worth seeing. I'm kind of upset that we didn't review it before the Oscars, so we had a little bit more. I was the only one who had seen it before the Oscars, so I was the only one to talk about it, really. And even then, I saw it late because we didn't get it until January out here. But it has enjoyed a very nice theatrical run. It's one of the top grossing films for Neon too. It's definitely kind of been the slow burn movie of the year. It's still in the theaters. It came on Hulu on Monday on St. Patrick's Day, but it is in theaters still. I'm glad they've kind of loaned themselves, or Neon's adhered to Sean Baker's request of letting this movie breathe quite a bit in theaters, because it was technically released, let me see, October. It was mid-October, and it's kind of been a slow burn expansion since then. But this is the new movie from Sean Baker. Sean Baker, a director that I absolutely love, was acquainted with him back in 2012. 2012. He made a movie called Starlet. And then he...
and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, it's Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube. We come to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening, 6:30 Central Time. And it's fun. It's funny. The last couple of shows, we haven't talked the big movie of the week because there's another smaller movie that we would like to discuss too. But just so you know, we're reviewing Warfare tonight. But next week, we are talking everything there is to talk about Sinners. And I'm so excited for that show next week. I'm excited for this show, obviously, too. Really looking forward to talking about this movie. But I'm loving all the Sinners content I'm seeing on Twitter.
Same.
Loving all the posts, the pictures, the praise, the reviews. I've read so many different reviews for this movie. I've probably read 14 or 15 reviews. Really excited to talk Sinners with you gentlemen next week. I'm very excited. Joe, always excited for what you have to say, but I'm very, very interested in Dom's commentary too.
I'm also feeling the same way. Dom, like, your review next week is like what I'm looking forward to the most, honestly.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Have you seen it yet, Dom, or no?
No, I have not.
Okay, so you don't even know why we're saying that then, probably. Okay.
I'm honored that you gents would think of me in that way.
No, I'm very excited to hear what you have to say in particular, too, just because I love your perspective on movies like this. And I love talking about Ryan Coogler, too. I think Ryan Coogler now has, when we look at, like, I was actually listening to a podcast briefly, and then I'll move forward, but I was listening to Sean Fennessy on the Ringer movies. If you haven't looked into him, highly recommend him. Fennessy, though, was reviewing Sinners with a couple other people. And he said, he's like, somebody asked me about a year ago, he's like, we did a podcast on, like, who are the filmmakers of today that we're going to remember in 20 years? Like, today we talk about Scorsese, we talk about Spielberg, you know, these iconic filmmakers. Who's going to be this generation's icons? And he was like, I was going through the list, like Ari Aster, Jordan Peele, you know, some of those names. And he's like, I think now, he was like, I was kind of holding off on Coogler until he did something original again. And he said, I think, he's like, Coogler is now in that pantheon.
Yeah.
Of directors too.
So
I'm looking forward to you guys talking about it.
I was already feeling that way with Coogler. Like, after seeing something like Creed, I was like, I think this guy's got something that, like, you know, we're just waiting to see where it goes. And then with him doing the 2 Black Panther movies, I was like, yeah, you know, like, I'm really seeing it here. Sinners is the one as well. It kind of cements it. Like, yeah, he's definitely that guy.
What a run. Fruitvale Station, Creed, Black Panthers 1 and 2, Sinners.
He's never made a bad movie.
Yeah.
He's never made a bad movie. I mean, Wakanda Forever is a little messy. How could it not be, just given everything that surrounded that movie? But the other thing that he did, too, is like we talk about these directors that do indie movies or do smaller movies and then get poached by Marvel or a big studio. But if you look at his trajectory, so he got Creed, which seems like a fucking cheat code of a movie to get, of an opportunity. But you got to think the Rocky lore and everything is so strong. And that was the first spinoff. I mean, there was pressure there. There was tangible pressure there. And he knocked it out of the park with a great but still universal story about, like, masculinity, you know, ambition, fatherhood. Like, he crushed that first Creed movie. And then he went on to do Marvel, and in a system that kind of eats directors alive or kind of submits them to the brand, Black Panther stands as probably one of the top 3, what would you say, top 3 Marvel movies of the MCU.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah,
You
I
know,
would say,
like-
I mean, like, you know, personal favorite wise, it's like top 5 for me. But like, in terms of like ones of like directors who I think like their work, you know, is really shown in that film, it's like him, James Gunn, and probably what's his name? Oh my God, the guy that did the Homecoming trilogy, the Spider-Man trilogy.
Mark Webb.
No, not Mark Webb.
Or what is it?
John Hamm.
Watts?
John Watts. Yeah, John Hamm's an actor.
John Hamm? Like, what?
I went Mark Webb, and I'm like, no, wait, didn't he do the Amazing Spider-Man?
He did the
Or
Amazing
John
Spider-Man
Watts,
movies. Yeah,
who did
like
Cop
what?
Car.
Yeah. Watts, to me, it's like, I know like some people say, well, he doesn't have really a style. It's like, well, his style is like, you know, just like how he like does character interactions, which is one of the best parts of those Spider-Man movies with Tom Holland, is like how the kids all bounce off one another, especially that first movie. But like, yeah, he's like one of the few directors where it's like, yeah, he gets in that studio, but like, he actually still like makes it to where like his film, I feel like, at least stands out from the rest because it's like, ooh, that guy actually has some style to this film.
And I'll also throw in there too, it's not as great of a movie as the other ones that you've mentioned from those directors, but I will say the other director in the MCU that I think did get to shine. Now you could kind of see, I remember even watching the movie in theaters thinking like, okay, this is where this is where Marvel made him pull back a little bit, or Feige made him pull back. But Sam Raimi, Doctor Strange 2.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, like that I mostly associate with his own Spider-Man trilogy, but yeah, Multiverse of Madness for sure.
Yeah, I would add that too. Yeah, but now Sinners, no, I cannot wait for your take, Dom. The one line I've been saying, I'm waiting for me and Catherine to go pick one of our friends up or something so I could say, we're $2 looking for a dime. Great fucking movie. Can't wait to talk about it. Great movie tonight, too. Warfare, Ray Mendoza, Alex Garland. This movie has been, for what is kind of not even like a spiritual follow-up, I guess you would say, to Civil War. It's just so similar. Obviously, Alex Garland, director of Ex Machina, Annihilation, Civil War last year, which came out a year ago. It was a year ago in April. This is kind of not related, but a spiritual follow-up. Definitely feels that way because Warfare was inspired on the set of Civil War between Alex Garland and his co-director on this movie, Ray Mendoza. Ray Mendoza is an Iraq war vet who served as the military supervisor on Civil War. So we'll dive into this one in a few minutes. First things first, Joe's got the wife beater on today. It's warm out here. Finally, a tolerable temperature despite the rain. How are you doing today, Joe?
I'm doing good. Yeah, no, it's gotten definitely warmer out. And typically I have the warmest room in the house, so sometimes I'll throw on a tank top, sometimes I'll throw on short sleeves. But yeah, no, it's hot, but I'm doing okay. I'm glad we're finally getting. I'm glad the damn sun is out because the last few days here, at least I can't remember when the last time I saw the sun. It's been mostly cloudy and rainy here in the Chicagoland area, so. It's been nice to actually see that damn thing actually peep out behind the clouds and be like, hey, I'm here. Don't worry about it.
It rained like a bitch on Easter Sunday, too.
It did, man. I was waiting for the Cubs game to start because my family's a big Cubs game. I mean, Cubs game, but it's a big Cubs like family. And the rain delay went on for so long that we ended up eating dinner, doing the Easter egg hunt, and the next thing I know, the Cubs game actually was on during that whole time, and then it was over. And I was like,
I was really surprised that they played. I was
same.
surprised that they still played because it was bad. It was bad this weekend.
Yeah.
Dom, how are you doing today, man?
I'm all right. We rarely talk TV or like other recommendations in the intro, but I happen to have a broken washing machine, and while doing my laundry at my parents' house, we watched, because my dad has Apple TV, we watched The Studio starring Seth Rogen.
Okay.
And that is a pretty damn good TV show.
It is.
If you enjoyed Birdman, the Michael Keaton, like one shot film, you'll probably like The Studio. It's a little less intense and more comedic, but it's a beautiful send up of the Hollywood industry, touching a lot of things that we talk about on this show.
Yeah,
and it is a movie really made for Redditors, and it's good.
It's like what's the term? I think it's called like inside baseball. It's like an inside baseball movie. Yeah. Like if you know like the behind the scenes stuff, if you know the people who direct movies, because Scorsese has a big
Scorsese, Ron Howard.
Yeah, he's a big character in that show.
Olivia Wilde.
Yep.
Really, really funny cameo. And all these all those directors, at least, they play themselves.
Yeah.
And it's really funny.
Can I add on to that?
I'll just add really quick. I already like the look of it. I like the look of the title card, but I like the promising factor that Wikipedia bills it as an American satirical cringe comedy television series.
Yeah,
there's a lot of cringing. There's episode 2. I'll be really quick. So 1 minute. Here we go. Seth Rogen is the head of a studio, newly appointed head of a studio, and he visits the set of a one-shot scene. They're filming a one-shot scene, and it's at sundown, so they only have like a few chances to make this happen. And the whole like show, the episode in and of itself is a one shot, and it's Seth Rogen in a comedy of errors continuously screwing up the shot, and you just keep wondering, are they gonna make this shot? And it's really funny. The director who plays a director plays herself because she is a director. It's not Greta Gerwig, but regardless,
Catherine Hahn.
no, she's a different character.
Okay.
But regardless, it is. I'm not gonna get the name, but it is a really really funny show. And in fact, like in the pilot, he's like, Seth Rogen is a nerd who's inept to a good degree, but he's like, yeah, I do believe in filmmaking. He is like he seems like a well-meaning guy. But then he's tasked with also having to make billions and billions of dollars with a Kool-Aid franchise.
Yeah.
Kool-Aid movie franchise. And that is like so freaking true. Because they name drop Barbie.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Like,
it's
the
a
actual
Barbie connection
phenomenon.
to the
It's
whole
like,
thing.
The studio head is like, you can do if they can do Barbie, you can do Kool-Aid. Everyone loves Kool-Aid, and it's just really good. I would highly suggest at least watching the first 2 episodes, but I think you'd get hooked if you keep watching it.
Now I want a Kool-Aid movie. Now I want a Kool-Aid movie. There was a comic series, FYI. If you don't know, now you know. There was a comic series.
That
with the
can work as
Kool-Aid
a
Man.
comic, yeah.
That episode has a great connection to the whole drinking the Kool-Aid thing too. It's just so good.
I just think a Kool-Aid Man on Family Guy. He's had some dime moments on that show. Let's go dark. Let's talk warfare. Ray Mendoza, Alex Garland. This new movie is a sucker punch of a movie, to say the least. So I talked about it just a little bit to give a little background. This movie is a collaborative feature between Ray Mendoza and Alex Garland. Ray Mendoza served as the military supervisor on Civil War. Alex Garland, director of Ex Machina, Annihilation, Civil War most recently. This movie is essentially based on Mendoza's experiences during the Iraq War. He was a Navy SEAL. And this takes a look at a operation in 2006. It's basically a surveillance operation that takes place in the city of Ramadi, Iraq. And it drops you in to the setting very, very unremarkably after a very fun opening scene, a very fun and very loud ass opening scene of them watching an exercise video, a very like scantily clad suggestive exercise video that immediately I turned to Catherine and I said, oh, they got that. I'm like, there's a continuity here. They're watching The Substance.
What's the name of that song? Real quick, interrupting you. What's the name of that song?
It's called Call on Me.
Call on Me. That's right.
Call on Me, okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the music video for the video too.
That's
for the song.
Yeah, that's just the music video for the song.
Is it really? Okay, I thought it was an exercise. I thought it was an exercise. I thought it was a legit exercise.
It is.
video.
It's both. Honestly.
God, okay, this is a legit song. I have to go back and listen to that.
Dude,
That was
mid 2000s Eurobeats were like Eurobeat music videos were insane.
That was a fucking banger.
That's the song too. Dua Lipa pays tribute to in one of her other songs. Forgot what it's called.
Okay.
Motivation or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, that totally went over my head.
Physical. There we go. That song. She pays tribute to that in her music video.
That totally went over my head. Nice.
Anyway, the Eric Pride's Call on Me music video, 4 out of 4 stars. All right, let's end this.
But Garland, though, even though he's co-director on this, he said a while ago that this is really Mendoza's movie. He said that he was basically on set as sort of a vessel of support and sort of guidance, just having the experience of directing a movie and Mendoza not having that. So he gives a lion's weight of the credit of the movie to Mendoza. But again, this movie is essentially, it's real time. It's shot in real time, so you're waiting with this large faction of soldiers that are essentially stationed. The early scene of the movie is them taking hostage a slew of people living in an apartment complex, so they can monitor the activity of a market across the street, like 3 different buildings. So for the first half hour, you're basically watching them surveil the land and everything like that. They're watching through the sniper. You have a commanding officer in Will Poulter who's giving guidance and instruction. Ray Mendoza's character is played by DeFaro Wunate, who is in the show. Help me out here. Reservation Dogs. and he plays Mendoza's character, who's like the communicator of the group. And it becomes very clear very early on that the American soldiers are surrounded and they're outnumbered. And you're sort of just waiting here with bated breath for the attack. And when it comes, it's fucking loud, it's chaotic, it's disorienting. This is a movie that really puts its sound design first for an immersive movie going experience, especially in the theater. There's no music. There's no music whatsoever. There's no cutaways. There's really few title cards. That you really get a slice of life as this from the soldier's perspective in this movie. And man, is it damn good. I'll let you take it here, Dom. What do you want to say about Warfare?
Well, I just wanted to mention first and foremost that this is 3 movies now where the audience is trapped in a house with unspeakable horrors happening outside that house with Will Poulter. Between Detroit, Death of a Unicorn, and this movie,
Yeah.
that is just. I never want to be roommates with Will Poulter in my life. If that opportunity somehow ever arose, no, do not take that chance. No one take that chance.
Astute observation there.
I was like, well, the first thing was Detroit. I'm like, Jesus Christ, why this is happening again? And really, to that point, just a testament to, before I go into the generalization, testament to how intimately we get to know this set. This is a 1-set movie. It really is. It is through composed. It happens in real time, and it's 100 not through composed. That's a music term, but it is essentially a 1-set movie, and it calls out to the military adage that I've been told time and time again to or from veterans that I happen to be in contact with, and they tell me that, yeah, military life is long periods of just absolute boredom, just mind-numbing boredom, punctuated by moments of sheer terror. And I congratulate this movie on really accentuating just how boring the military life is. And my number one concern, I've been alluding to it time and time again in the weeks leading up to this review, but my number one concern with Warfare was that it took all of the action from the last third, give or take, of Civil War, and then puts it in a soulless movie that doesn't really do much. Now, it would, if you watch this movie on first watch, you might think that it fulfills my prediction, but I'm actually happy to report that I don't think it does. And which is interesting because there's no allusions to, the political situation of the war in Iraq. There's so much, there's no cuts to like George Bush or Dick Cheney or all that stuff. As much as I love that shit, it doesn't do any of that, and it's smart to do so. This movie really has, for me, the implicit notion of these guys went through absolute hell. War sucks. And America as a country put them in that situation. That is the number one message that should be taken away from this movie, in my opinion, in these times, is that America put these guys in this situation. Now, of course, that is, you wouldn't get that if you are, if you're, 15 years old as of this movie release and you have no idea about American history and you're not even American, right? You wouldn't know that from watching this movie. But that is the reflection that I see here in this film. So, and like Civil War, I am very, again, happy to say that this is a technical marvel. It really is. And it is in many ways a showy thing, but it is just so detailed in how it does its filmmaking overall. So just, I'll end by saying kudos to Mendoza, really, for accomplishing, this is their first movie. There's not even a Wikipedia for this guy yet. So I think this is his first film as a director. It is really, really impressive. Yeah.
Very well said, though, and I'll add to your point too about these guys are in the situation because America put them in this situation, and I'll say it too, and I think it's damn telling in the last 5 minutes, especially that last final shot before that really well done epilogue with the real life soldiers working with the actors on the set of the movie. I'll add to that and just say a lot was lost, a lot happened, and nothing was accomplished.
Yeah.
What say you, Joe?
The day I found out, like, Mendoza is an Iraq vet, who has been very much speaking out to films, and not to say that these films are bad. Like, there's actually quite a few I enjoy, but like American Sniper, Lone Survivor, movies like that, where he's just like, don't get me wrong, like, those are entertaining movies, but they completely missed the point of what it was like over there. And Warfare was his goal to actually make probably most authentic experience in the Iraq War for a film. And when I heard him say that, I said, okay, him being an Iraq vet himself, we're going to see it like probably way darker than any of those movies have done. Because like to me, I look at American Sniper, I look at Lone Survivor, I look at a lot of those movies, and it's just like, there's like constant gunfight, but like they take down like 30 people. All the and they roll in, and I'm like, yeah, Warfare is not really like that. At least in Iraq, it wasn't that crazy. Like, the one thing I love about Hurt Locker is like, while they're over there, they get into like one shootout, but I mean, it took all day for that shootout to end. It's when they're in the trenches with the sniper and everything, and it's just like it's such an intense sequence. So it brings me joy to say that, yeah, like Warfare to me, in terms of this Iraq era of war films, I do think it's probably the most authentic one. And I think it's because it doesn't hide anything. And kind of going off of what Dom was saying, you are stuck in this house with these soldiers, and it is hell. And and when you think like, oh, okay, like, it's just gunfire and everything, and then it's just like, oh god, like that guy's legs are messed up. Dude, that guy's losing his voice from just screaming. Bro, that guy's just sitting in a corner. He's not even doing anything right now. Like, oh my god, the guy that we thought was dead, he's actually alive. Like, it's just, and like the situation just keeps amping up more and more. And the entire time, I mean, like, gunfire is going off. No one's really getting hit on either side. It's just exchanging gunfire and like screaming and yelling, and it's still just as intense as like, because the ending of Civil War is like, I mean, there's like tanks, there's explosions going off, helicopters coming in, blowing up people are getting shot left and right. And it's like, I went into this, I was like, okay, is it going to be like that? No, I mean, like, I think like 3 people die in total throughout the whole 95 minutes of this movie, and I would say 70 minutes of this movie is just nothing but gunfire going off and screaming.
There's the dude who gets blown up.
Yeah,
and he gets blown up,
dude.
And then there's
one Iraqi person that gets shot.
There's an Iraqi that gets killed.
Yeah, and then maybe like one other American soldier, but I honestly don't remember. For all I know, it could be just those 2.
I think there's only 2.
I think
like,
there's 2
confirmed kills in like the whole movie. Yeah.
And it's crazy. Oh, you know what? Maybe the tank that gets blown up too. Like, oh wait, no, because the tank drives off. Never mind. Yeah, yeah, never mind. So it is just those 2. Yeah, and it even though it's just those 2, it still feels just as intense as the beach scene in Saving Private Ryan, the ending the Civil War. It's just as intense as those, even though the body count isn't high, and that is due to the technical marvel that I credit to probably Garland. I mean, not to say Mendoza didn't play with that as well. Like, he definitely contributes to this as well. But you could tell this is where Garland probably stepped in to kind of like be like, hey, like, we'll do this in terms of like sound and all this other stuff that he kind of brought that experience he did in Civil War to here. Yeah, man, the entire time I was watching this movie, like, I'm just stressed out. I'm just on the edge of my seat. But you can't help but feel, knowing everything that we do know about the Iraq War now, you can't help but feel, what the hell is the point of any of this? Honestly, why were they at this market? What was the intel or anything? And was it worth it in the end? And as like more and more veterans kind of come out and go, yeah, we should have never been there as long as we have. I mean, as long as we were, we should have probably left a whole lot hell sooner. Watching a film like this just shows like, yeah, I mean, like, look how much resources were used, and even though the body count wasn't high, look how much damage it still left these men who are alive, and the ones who did die, I mean, they got killed in such gruesome ways that it's just like that's just going to leave a scar to the people who did see that or the people who are with them. It's authentic. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say I'll go even further than what you said about why were we there. I would say the whole Iraq War was a completely and entirely self-own. Like there was absolutely no need to go in. Afghanistan, I can understand that we were so bloodthirsty after 9/11 we needed to punch something, but Iraq was an entirely unforced error because the son really wanted to finish his daddy's business, that being the Bushes. But in terms of this, like, yeah, kudos to this great implicit filmmaking where it's like, oh yeah, they don't do like a mission briefing at the beginning, right? They're just in the house.
No. And there's like tactics they use. Like, I mean, like, I'm glad like they didn't like sugarcoat these tactics where it's just like, you know, they send the 2 soldiers that are with them that are part of the Iraq.
The 2 Iraqis.
Yeah, they didn't sugarcoat the fact that like, yeah, we're literally sending them out there to draw fire and everything. There's that whole moment where it's like the guy doesn't take the shot and they call him weak and everything. And it's like there's a lot of stuff they don't sugarcoat or try to hide about, like, yeah, how, like, you know, the military is like, you know, kind of like, this whole like scenario is like really fucked up and everything. You know, it's one of my favorite parts about Jarhead. And like I kept seeing on like online and people like were saying this is like glorifying our military, and it's like, I don't think it is, man.
I think so.
It honestly, it made me look at it and be like, Jesus Christ, like the tactics we used over there were really messed up. Like we took a family's home and made it a base of operations and held them hostage for like the whole time.
The most liberated that family feels is when the SEAL team leaves.
Yeah.
When the Americans leave them alone, that's when the family feels the most liberated.
After like their whole upstairs just got blown up and everything.
Like, blood all over their floor. Yeah.
That's the only relief that they feel is when they leave.
Yeah.
Like it's telling. Like it's terrible, but it doesn't really relate to this, but I feel like mentioning it anyway. Well, last night I was watching South Park. I had it on Pluto, and the episode where they go to Afghanistan was on. Do you remember that one?
This is the post 9/11 one, right?
Yeah, they're wearing like gas mask as soon as the episode starts.
Well, they're wearing gas masks. This is the one too where this is the one where they where they're tasked in school to like write letters to the Afghani kids.
Yeah,
and then the Afghani kids send them a goat. And then they're like, we can't keep the goat. So then they go to Afghanistan to return the goat. I still laugh like a child watching South Park. But when they land and Cartman gets off the plane, oh my God, what a crap hole. No wonder these people are pissed off. and then they're like, and then they tell the Afghani kids, we can't accept the goat because it was choking on the sweet air of American freedom. Oh man, I just felt like mentioning that for no other reason. But no, like going on to what you were even saying too, that like, you know, the commentary of this movie, like it's not thin, but it allows your own interpretation just by its naturalistic setup, just by the way that it strips down everything you're used to seeing in war movies. There's no romantic subplot. There's no score. So there's no montage really or anything. Like everything that you've come to expect from war movies is pretty absent in this movie. And which makes it very very laudable rather, excuse me. The one thing, and I might even go post intermission to mention this too. The one thing that this movie does incredibly well, and it's due to the lack of real flashy aesthetics and editing and stuff like that, even though the editing is good, is the fucking sound design is masterful in this thing. Like worthy of Oscars, worthy of an Oscar nomination, the sound design in this movie. One of my favorite effects in war films usually follows a massive explosion. It's that effect where the sound drops and it's silence, like they kind of deafening silence. And then you hear like the ring or a discordant tone to suggest deafness from anybody in the vicinity. That happens a few times in this movie. And in some ways, it's almost like a fucking relief. in some ways to like hear nothing outside of screaming and gunfire. I mean, this is a loud movie. I mean, everything feels thunderously loud. And those moments where the sound drops and it shows like the soldiers screaming in agony amidst like the disorienting dust and there's no audible
Yeah.
sound is harrowing in itself. This movie's masterfully edited in the sound department.
I mean, hell, there's like for at least 25 minutes, they're just they're treating a wound, but like still, I mean, just the sound of like in the like when it's cutting from room to room, and it's like the sound of like of him screaming in the distance, people going back upstairs to check the upstairs, and you're just hearing from the outside. It's like they do such a great job with the sound design of making you feel like they just can't leave that house because on the outside you're just hearing footsteps, you're hearing distant like chatter, you're hearing a gunshot every once in a while. It's like, dude, like it's like it keeps you on edge the entire time. Like at any moment, a grenade can just roll through that doorway, and it's like, okay, now we have to move again.
This is the kind of movie where they need to give you like the theater itself, or somebody needs to give you like a complimentary ticket to like a masseuse afterwards too, because you're like so fucking tight from watching this movie too. Like my shoulders hurt when I came out of this movie. I mean, because like they do a great job. Mendoza and Garland do a really great job in the first 30 minutes of just like the surveillance aspect of this thing, because you're waiting for the shoe to fall, a grenade, you're waiting for a shot, you're waiting for something, but it's like you revel in the boredom too, and just the monotony and everything. Soldiers do.
We never see that with any war film, so it actually was just like, wow, like this is actually what it's really like. And then for it to just go from 0 to 100 real quick, or like in my Letterboxd review, I said, this edible ain't shit, and it just like takes off. It was just like, oh my god.
And that's where, and we can talk about this more after the intermission, that's where you really see that this movie was, I mean, for all intents and purposes, this movie was made by veterans.
Yeah.
This movie was made by military men. And I love that epilogue at the very end. I don't want to ruin it too much for anybody who hasn't seen it, but the epilogue, it comes before the credits. Sinners is now really ignited the mid-credit discourse online now, but it comes before the credits, just so you're aware. And it's well done in the way that it shows you how hands-on these military men were with this cast. All the men got partnered with their counterpart, with their actor counterpart, to like show them how they move in certain situations, show them how they crawl and whatnot. And that's where you can see it's like, man, this movie was really made by veterans, and you feel that throughout this movie. We're going to take a quick Zoom sponsored intermission, be back to talk more about Ray Mendoza and Alex Garland's Warfare. Don't go anywhere. It's absolutely does. You need flood insurance downtown. But we'll talk Joker, Folly You Do. Now, I think the first thing people need to realize with this movie, right out of the gate, Joker was never intended to have a sequel, which is very rare for quote unquote comic book movies. I have a hard time calling this a comic book movie, but I guess by definition it technically is, even though it's really just a sort of a reimagined take on the Joker character. And Joker from 2019 with Joaquin Phoenix was never intended to have a sequel. It was always going to be standalone. But there was a combination of factors. There was the fact that it made over $1 billion. I think it is among Deadpool versus Wolverine probably made more, but it's got to be in the top 5 for highest grossing R-rated movies.
Oh yeah.
It has to be. And it was always going to be a success, but I don't think people really predicted it to be as big as it was going to be. It was a cultural moment for quite a while. But the other factor that wound up resulting in getting a sequel too, honestly, from what I read, was Joaquin Phoenix. Joaquin Phoenix was determined to visit the Arthur Fleck character again, like imploring Todd Phillips to try to conjure up another story because of the possibilities that would exist with the Joker character in their mind. Now, what we got here, I think, is sort of a compilation reel of all of those ideas. All those ideas that Phillips, Phoenix, and others probably brainstormed is kind of what we got here. I'll just start by saying this, and I'll toss it over to you, Joe. I saw your hand up. I'll start off by this. This movie is a musical, and it shouldn't be a surprise. They were not hiding this fact from the moment this thing went into production. And I'm not ready to go into like my thoughts on the musical aspects and the musical numbers yet, but what I'll just say is that it's very strange in a way to watch a sequel that is completely divorced from its predecessor insofar as that it takes an enormously different route than its predecessor. And it's not the kind of route that these movies are known for. And it's not the kind of route that you see typically because you have this mix of like gritty realism and musical numbers. And I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm not saying it really works. It's odd. You want to talk about folie à deux, which means madness for two, gritty realism and musical numbers merged together. It's very strange. It's one of the more damning mainstream releases of the year. It's gonna be an interesting discussion. What say you, Joe?
I just wanted to say to answer kind of what you were wondering about. Deadpool and Wolverine did overtake it by 300 million. Joker sits at number 2. Oppenheimer's 3, if you're curious. And then the next 2 Deadpool movies are 4 and 5. So those are the top 5 highest grossing R-rated.
Back and better than ever. It's Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube. You never know what we're going to briefly chat about during the Zoom-sponsored intermission. Since it's warming up here in the Midwest, we're talking about fans, talking about quality fans. I'm excited to for Joe to let me know about the Wuzu fan.
Yes.
To see if that is of quality.
This is not a sponsorship, but yes, here it is, the Wuzu fan.
Hey, it is if they want it to be.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, we'll take your money.
To quote, before we seg back, to quote the great rapper 2 Chainz in a song about his upbringing, no AC in the house. All we had was OnlyFans. On that note, I just do it for Dom's reaction, quite frankly. I get the chuckle out of Joe and the eye roll from Dom. We go back to talking about Warfare, however. We're touching on the sound design and we were touching on the epilogue. Where do you want to go with this, Joe? Where do you want to take this conversation? What would you like to note about Warfare?
I mean, like, you know, I think, man, did you guys have, I guess we can go into any criticisms with the movie. For me, I mean, like, it's tough because it's like the movie actually, I feel like it set out to do its job and it did it perfectly. I was like, I have no complaints on what it tried to do. I think the only like real like thing I had a gripe with was I do think, even though like, yes, that first 20 minutes, it's taking its time, it's setting the stage and everything. I do feel like maybe we could have trimmed that down just a little bit, but that was about it. Like, it's so weird that, like, you know, for a film like this, I don't have that many criticisms about it. Yet, like, it's not like a 4-star movie. It's just like, hey, it just set out to do its job, and it did it very well. It was weird because my friends were like, well, is there anything you didn't like about it? I'm like, not really. I'm like, it's almost like kind of just a perfect movie, but not like a 4-star perfect movie.
I honestly, I would disagree just because I think it was an intentional choice, or it felt like an intentional choice.
Oh, it absolutely is. Yeah.
That discomfort in the boredom where you're even going, oh, this feels like it's taking way too long. That feels like, again, part of an implicit message there
that's probably how they felt too.
Yeah, they felt that. They felt the boredom on a micro level. And on a macro level, they're thinking, hey, what are we doing in this country? We are here for way too long. We invaded 3 years ago. Surely we'll get out any time now, right?
And don't get me wrong. I mean, like, it's not like a real criticism. I feel like it's if I had to find something, like, I guess there's that. But
sure.
then it's like, okay, we're trimming the movie down so we can get closer to the action. It's like, and so what? It could be more entertaining. It's like, that's not what the movie was really set out to do. It was supposed to be, yes, this is more of a horror film than like an entertaining, like, action war movie.
I don't feel this way, but I do think the one criticism that can be levied at the movie, I don't feel this way, but I think the one criticism that can be tossed to the way of Warfare, and you have to understand it on this level, is what is perceived to be a lack of character development.
Sure.
But on the flip side, however, I will say this: we don't get to learn a lot about these men as individuals. We really don't. We learn about them through their actions in combat and in distress. That's where we learn about them. And I'll let you say, Dom, and I'll come back and say this too. Don't mistake, I would say, like a lack of intense character development though for subpar performances, because that's not the case here.
Yeah. Everybody here is amazing. Go on.
I concur with that. That's not even what I was going to say, which is that I think, one, on a practical level, that would have taken way too much time. to try and flesh
agree.
out and develop all of these characters, or even prioritize, like say Will Poulter and the main three guys or four guys in charge. I think that would have been a waste of time, not economic. And also on top of that, I just don't think you need it. I really don't think you need that at all, because because when there is a vacuum of a traditional characterization. Well, actually, let me also add this real quick, is that if you do flesh out these characters more, you do run the risk of getting sappy. You do run the risk of getting sappy. And then suddenly it becomes about God and country and family and all that stuff. Right. That is completely antithetical to what I believe is the message of this movie. And then on top of what was the third point I was trying to say, is that this, with the vacuum of a lack of traditional characterization of like, where are you from? What's your family? What's your job? What are your hopes and dreams? In the vacuum of that, you just have these small character traits that stick out all the more. There's a character, and I love it. I love this, and I think it plays into the anti-American nature of it, or not anti-American. I'm sorry, anti-like war nature of it. There's a character that shows up halfway through this movie.
Oh, I know who you're gonna talk about.
Yeah, and he shows up and he's like, "What's up, guys? We're here, baby. Come on. Oh, your legs are busted. Come on, you're a Marine. You're a frog, man. Come on, man." And it's like, bro, cut it the fuck out. The Marines are like, dude, can you not right now? This is not the time and place for that.
I almost feel like that is like his, because was that guy
like
actually
tell, right?
was he actually like at the end of the epilogue, was that actually like an actor portraying a real soldier? Does anybody know for sure?
I couldn't
tell.
I would presume I couldn't tell you though, because so many of them are anonymous.
The choice
that is
to
true
add that
too.
yeah.
If he was added in, that almost feels like Mendoza's like middle finger to the whole mentality of like, yeah, like it's war, guys, like how people like think it's gonna be, or like how like the people think like the casual approach to it, where it's like, look, I had an audience experience with this movie, and I had people sitting by me who I can very much tell thought that this movie, and even in front of me too, that this movie is going to be like, hell yeah, America and everything. Mm-hmm. And it's like, look, like I said, I don't have a problem with movies like that. Like The Lone Survivor is definitely a movie like that. And I think it's an entertaining action movie for what it is and whatnot. Sure.
There's another movie like this, like Act of Valor, that used
Act of Valor. There you go.
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
Yes. There we go.
Remember
Perfect. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where, I mean, it's full on like that the entire time. That character kind of feels like that mentality. We hate that shit out there because shit is going down, and it's like there's a guy bleeding out, there's bullets coming in, and you running amok and bumping into stuff and hitting people and everything. It's not helping the situation. That guy's like freaking out in the corner, having a traumatic experience, and you hitting his helmet like, let's go, bro, let's do this, is not helping, man. It almost feels like also kind of like the whole like drama thing that a lot of war movies do, where he's like, oh, he's a rookie, he's got someone waiting for him back home. It kind of just feels like the opposite character of that. To add on to what you guys were saying too, I don't feel like they needed the characterization at all, because I actually feel like that Call on Me humanized them in such a unique way that we've never seen with a lot of these movies, because it made them feel young and straight out of college, like they were on spring break partying. Like, it made them feel like that. Dudes being dudes. Yeah, bros being bros. It really felt like that.
That's such... There's so much of this film is so economic. It's so precise that I genuinely adore it. This movie... Holy shit. I did not see this until just now. This movie apparently cost $20 million to make.
Yeah?
That makes so much sense. Honestly, they probably just used the two Bradleys from Civil War and then built this one set, and that's it. And it's like, yeah, don't paint the walls. None of the walls were painted in Iraq. So, dude, holy shit.
Honestly, most of the money probably just was like the cast itself, because it is
just buying the cast.
It's not like big name
Poulter.
actors, but they're well known people, like Charles Melton, Joseph Quinn Smith, Will Poulter. Like they're like well known people that will probably cost you a good amount of money. But yeah, in terms of like set design and everything, it's effective. Like, because they've purposely recreated it, but like, yeah, I mean, they didn't have to paint the walls or anything like that, and there's no like big spectacle of special effects here because like most of this time you're trapped in this house, and it's just the intensity of being surrounded.
It's honestly, you guys said it was a horror movie. I get much of the same vibes as when like we're watching a slasher movie.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
any time any of these characters cross a window, I am clutching my asshole.
Yeah.
Like, this is it. Just gunfire out of nowhere. I bet you. And it's like every single, I am watching, like, again, because how intimately you get to know
Dude,
this house.
When those
Right?
guys
The
had to go,
geography is so set. Yeah, it is, you are clutching that. It's like, oh my God, or they're just outside. They're just outside. Yeah.
those guys when they had to go on the roof just to lay down covering fire.
Shit.
Yeah.
To have the courage to go out there, but also just to be prone and just scurry backwards the entire time. I was like this. I'm like, oh, like someone's gonna die, right? I mean, this is a war movie. That typically happens here.
There's two different types of movies. There's ass numbing and ass clenching, and this is the latter for sure. 3 performers I want to highlight though, really quick. Wunatai, who plays the Mendoza character, Ray Mendoza's character. Very quietly engaging performance as the chief communicator of the group. Also really does some great work when he's tasked to apply the tourniquets to the wounded and keep them stable. Loved his character. Will Poulter also, too, has this. We talked about him a couple of weeks ago, Dom and I did, for Death of a Unicorn. Will Poulter has this, and I would have never expected, I'm going to keep saying this for the rest of his career after We're the Millers. I would have never expected him to have this quality. And it's not a common quality, but he has this quality where no matter what movie he's in, he feels right at home.
Yeah.
Like, it's like the anti-typecasting. Like, he looks like a fucking active duty SEAL in this movie. In Death of a Unicorn, he looks like the silver spoon son of an oligarch. Like, he just, in Detroit, he looked just like a young cop. Like, he looks the part in literally everything. And I loved, because what happens to him is very subtle in the movie, but he gets, like, in his words, he gets his bell rung in a Claymore explosion, and he's the leader, and he's like slowly losing it, like losing focus, and
but it's not like your typical like I'm losing my mind thing. It's so pulled back, but you can just feel it with just like the little words he's choosing to say. And just with his eyes, like he's not blinking.
Like glazed.
Yeah.
Like his eyes are like glazed. And then the other one I want to highlight, because I'm going to tell you right now, he's a young actor and he's really impressed the hell out of me over the last 3 movies I've seen him win, is that Charles Melton. I think he is an impressive young actor. I think he's got an Oscar in his future, not for this movie, but for something. I do. He first came on my radar. I know he was in Bad Boys for Life, but he first came on my radar in the movie Heart of Champions, which nobody's seen. That was a movie about a college rowing team. And you could tell how much I love Michael Shannon because he was the lead in that movie. He was really good in that movie, Charles Melton. He also, his kind of breakout role was a couple of years ago. He was the young husband in May December.
Yeah.
That movie with Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman about the woman who has the underage relationship, about the older woman that has the relationship with the underage male. Charles Melton is in that one too. He is excellent. He plays in Warfare. He plays the second in commanding officer behind Will Poulter, who winds up assuming the ranks when Will Poulter just can't focus any longer. He is so damn good. Melton's got an Oscar in his future. I'm going to say that right now. Terrific young actor from Alaska, of all places.
I feel like they chose a lot of these actors because, like, there's no like real star power behind them, but there was a presence felt when Charles Melton comes into the room. Just the way he walks in and commands the screen. It's like, all right, look, I know it's not supposed to be all Hollywood, but you can't help it with that chiseled fucking jaw that he's got, man.
He's another unfairly good-looking dude, too.
Yeah.
Like, that's the other thing that helps. He's got a swagger about him, too.
He does,
like,
yeah.
You know, you should have seen him row that boat in Heart of Champions. I tell you should have seen him row that damn boat. I mean, but now the one thing I want to mention, too, before we go into closing thoughts here, and this is, I feel like, you have, like, There's that 5-paragraph structure they teach you in middle school and high school when you're writing. There's the intro, body paragraphs, rebuttal, and conclusion. A lot of people, there's probably different nuances to it across generations, but that's kind of the basic gist. So I have to throw the rebuttal in here, and it's not a rebuttal against the movie. It's a rebuttal against something that somebody could email me on my website and bitch to me about. So I had to address this in the movie or in the review. I said some might wonder why I can excuse the lack of character development in Warfare when it was one of my chief complaints of Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk. And I thought about this when we got out of the movie and I was writing about it. And I think the difference is that Nolan's movie was geared towards spectacle, and it was one that lost a lot of luster, in my opinion, when it left theaters. When you remove the theatrical component from that movie, which was underscored by everything from 35 millimeter prints to IMAX and a slew of other film formats, Dunkirk, aside, it's got the Nolan hallmarks. It's a beautifully shot movie. It's very well lit. It's got great geometrical staging in a lot of ways. He's very mathematic with his shots. But it plays like a lot of other, I said, Dunkirk plays like a lot of other war movies. And without the theatrical component, I think that movie loses something because you don't have the characters to latch onto. Where versus in Warfare, it's all about authenticity. This is an authentic movie. The spectacle in the movie is not rendered sexy and cinematic. Many great war films have spatial clarity during battle sequences, so you're always kind of aware where you're at and who you're following. The lack of it is a strength in Warfare. It goes back to the sparseness and how this movie throws you into this and forces you to sit with these soldiers real time. Yeah. So that's what I would say. If anybody were to come at me and just as an exercise, just why did the lack of character development bug me in Dunkirk, but it didn't in this movie? I think that's the answer there.
Steve, you'd be great for IGN, bro, because that always happens on every IGN review. Somebody will pull a review out of their ass from like 8 years ago.
Exactly. You know what I mean? So I keep my own receipts. So like, you know what I mean? Like, but no, I think this is. I'll start with the closing thoughts then, unless you guys have anything to add. I'm just gonna say, just looking at this movie comprehensively, I think this is, given the lack of music, the lack of flashiness, really the lack of cinematic qualities, this movie feels like it's going to be the most primal film experience of the year for people who do choose to see it, because we don't get a lot of American movies like this. If you're somebody who watches a lot of indie movies or international films and films from other countries, you see it a lot. You see it a lot more than you do here. But in the mainstream American cinema, you don't get movies that are brave enough really to be this lean and be this economical with everything. And I love too the fact that this movie allows your senses to like cling to the suspense because of the lack of flair with this thing. It really makes you focus on things that you don't typically focus on in war movies. Like, for example, I love the collaboration, like beyond the absence of character development, I think is replaced too by the collaborative nature that which these SEALs work together. And the way that they can respond to these like situations where like two people are risk bleeding out, the one guy lost his legs, like situations like this, and they can react in such a way that really highlights the collaborative process that these men have to learn and learn fast if they're going to survive in situations like this. So I love that aspect of it. I think the cast is outstanding. Again, keep your eye on Charles Melton. That's one of my takeaways too. It's 3.5 out of 4 stars with me. For me, I had a lot to say about this thing, and I'm really glad that we got to talk about it on Sleepless too. I'll go Joe, then Dom for closing thoughts on Warfare.
Yeah, I very much enjoyed this movie. It's great to see, Garland, like, so soon after Civil War, another April release of just a year later, and in terms of spectacle, delivered something just as good with the sound design and even just like just filmmaking in general. But I mean, hats off mostly to Mendoza, who is at the helm here, is crafting his narrative here, and telling his story with Warfare. It's a very unique one. It's the most authentic Iraq era war film I think we're probably going to get. unless if someone else like of his nature steps up and also does the thing, also directs something. Because like the thing with Act of Valor, and I'm glad you brought that up, Steve, because that also does star real war veterans. Is that wasn't directed by war veterans. That just starred them. So they're just using them for, of course, just like, the star power, I guess, if you really want to call it that, or just a marketing ploy where it's like, hey, this is actually starring real Navy SEALs. It's like, okay, yeah, that's cool, I guess, but the way it's directed, you can tell it's got all the flash and everything, but no real substance. Here, there is substance. And it hits hard, it's raw, it's a thrilling and horrific time at the movies, and it's probably one of the best war movies that you'll probably ever see regarding the Iraq War era. It's also 3.5 out of 4 stars for me too.
Yeah. Dude, Warfare absolutely took me by surprise, and I'm so glad that it did. For artisans, this should be a lesson in technical detail. For producers, this should be a lesson in economics, only 20 million. For storytellers, this should be a lesson in implication and simplicity in your story. And for the American, the lesson I think should be this: watch this movie and think, we sent a generation of kids to a foreign country to fight a war for really no reason. And then once we lost Vietnam, we did it again in Iraq. That is that should be the takeaway from because there's going to, I don't know if there's going to be. I think this is an effective enough anti-war film. The far right isn't even going to try to, grasp onto this. I think if you're on the left or even just liberal, it's like, I don't think you need to surrender this movie. I don't think you need to dismiss this movie as rah America propaganda. I genuinely think, based on first viewing, it is an anti-war film.
Yeah. In fact, if you are going to take that approach and be claiming that, you actually saying that about this movie is not helping what you're preaching. Like this is actually giving you no pun intended. This is actually giving more ammo for what you're trying to say.
Like, yeah, man, the fact that these are the Navy SEALs, the highly mythicized Navy SEALs, and they get so messed up. Like a dude screws up a morphine injection. Anyway, this was gonna be 3.5 out of 4 stars, but the more I think about it, I think this is a 4-star movie. I'm gonna be quite honest with you.
Okay.
I love my war movies, but there's always that nagging detail where it's like, yeah, this is all kind of rah America, isn't it? Like your Lone Survivors, like your
Top Gun Mavericks.
100%. But I'll watch Top Gun Maverick.
Oh yeah, same here. Yeah, I'll shit. Throw that on any day. I'm there, bro.
This is a hot bold take from Dominic right now. Dare I say, and I'm completely owning this if I'm wrong, I think this might be the most effective anti-war movie that is also like a true to technical marvel, true authentic war movie on that same level of this.
Hey man, the only competition I know,
the past 10 years.
Yeah, the only competition I know is Act of Valor. That's about it.
And like Act of Valor as a story, as a movie, is kind of dog shit.
It really is, yeah.
Well, a totally forgettable movie.
That movie truly
as a story, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah, it truly was predicated on the marketing gimmick of active duty Navy SEAls.
Yeah,
and then the one thing, like, don't get me wrong, you can say this because these aren't actors. They're not actors. It was kind of also to the same.
You're putting them in a movie that is supposed to have actors.
It was also it wasn't this bad, but it was like Clint Eastwood's movie The 1517 to Paris, where that movie's whole thing was it starred the real life men behind the train attack, and it was like,
it's Craven, right?
It's a Craven marketing gimmick at the same time too. It's like, okay, it's a marketing gimmick. You got the real life people in it, and then you go see the movie and you're like, yeah, these guys aren't actors. They don't pull you in. Like, I'm like, and then with the 1517 in Paris, it was even worse in a way too. I remember just thinking, I'm like, I know they had to agree to do it and stuff like that, but it kind of feels slimy putting these guys in a dramatization of the worst day of their life. You know what I mean? At the same time. I'm like, come on, Clint. You know, there's a reason that why that's one of your least remembered movies of the last 15 years too. It was like it wasn't they weren't really engaging performers because they're not actors, and also it's like, well, this doesn't really add any quality to the movie.
Meanwhile,
At least an act of valor, at least sort of like the marches and the staging of it and those seals, at least that was accurate.
meanwhile, you have Ray Mendoza, who was literally there, the world actively accounting for the worst day of his life and not zhuzhing it up to be rah rah America is
Right.
a beautiful act of restraint when he had truly every right to do that. Right? I guess you could argue he did kind of make himself look like a badass because he was the guy that never got shot and got in there. But regardless,
Well, and then also,
yeah.
I mean, he's the one to first leave, and he feels fucking guilty for leaving his brothers behind. Like that.
Is that him?
That's him.
'Cause
That is him.
Yeah,
no,
he
I
gets.
thought Ray Mendoza was the guy who comes later, right? No.
No.
No,
He's
he's
the
the
guy who
chief
disconnects the
communicator.
radio because he just can't take it anymore. And then when he's trying to call for backup, he realizes like, oh fuck, like the radio's
Yeah.
not plugged in.
Because his whole
you're
job is
right.
communicating. That's his whole job.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
And then he's got to play medic. He's got to play armchair medic at a point
Jesus.
in the movie too. You know, yeah, no, great discussion.
No.
Great discussion. Really great review. Really great film. See it if you can. It's still in theaters now. Warfare. Next week is going to be a big one. It's Sinners, gentlemen. Cannot wait to talk about this movie.
Oh,
This
boy.
is, and you know what? This is such a great thing to point out too. Just real quick before we end the show, is that right now in theaters, and of course, like, it's sad in a way that like the people that will still say this have just kind of just detached themselves from like paying attention to what's in theaters. It's a fucking great time for movies right now. Like, at least American movies that are in theaters, mainstream movies, there's a lot of original stuff out.
Yeah.
There, if you really look at it, I mean, in the last few weeks, we got Drop, The Luckiest Man in America, Warfare, Sinners. There really feels like something for everybody at the theater right now. Like, in terms of just original movies that aren't tethered to like IP and stuff like that. Even this weekend, we're going to see Until Dawn, which is based on a video game. But we are seeing that, and we're seeing The Ballad of Wellis Island, which is the new British folk comedy. So there's a lot out right now that is really original and nice. And in a couple of weeks here too, we're talking Sinners next week. Couple of weeks here too, we're getting one that I'm sneakily excited for too, because it looks fucking weird as Friendship. I'm excited for that. That was it. Tim Robbins is his
Tim
name.
Robinson, yeah. Tim
He's-
Robinson and Paul Rudd.
Yeah, I love that trailer because I love how that trailer is so dark and moody, and all the pull quotes in that
Yeah.
trailer say like the funniest movie of the year, hilarious, and it's so dark and weird. And I'm like, I want to know where the comedy's at in this thing.
I love, dude. I hope the trailer is. I am prepared for a film that is exactly that trailer. I also secretly hope it's not that trailer at all.
I agree.
Yeah, right. And it's, dude, Tim Robbins is truly like, he's on fire. He is a genius right now. He knows exactly who he is. He knows exactly what his face gives off, and he plays into that 100%. I love that guy.
That movie feels like it's got the Adult Swim aesthetic too, which I
Oh
can't
my
really
God.
explain, but it's got the Adult Swim absurdist aesthetic.
Oh
And
yeah,
that-
you're right. Yeah.
That last kicker in the trailer too. There's a new Marvel out that's supposed to be nuts. I just loved it because, like you said, Dom, he knows who he is,
Yeah.
and he doesn't play into it so much as he just owns it, and he's authentic, and that's what I love. I'm excited as hell for that Friendship movie. That's a sneaky one this spring that I think is going to be really good. We will review that on Sleepless when the time comes. Next week is Sinners. Cannot wait. It's going to be a big show next week. For Joe Viso, Dominic Guanzon, and yours truly, this has been Sleepless with Steve.
and online. It's Sleepless with Steve.